Welcome to the April 2016 Virtual Stamp Club. This month I want to share with you a couple projects using the Helping Me Grow stamp set. This one is from the Occasions catalog, which we only have for April and May, and then it's gone. I'm not sure which stamp sets are going to stick around or which ones aren't, so we just try and make the most of them while they're here, and I particularly love this one. So the first project I want to show you is this card and matching envelope, and it's got actually quite a lot of detail to it. I'm sure you can't see a lot of the cool detail from the video, so check the PDF, download the PDF file, because I'll take some nice close-up pictures and include it in there so you can see the shimmer and the details that we'll go over shortly. So there's a few techniques I want to show you in this one. First is just some watercoloring tips, and second is this cool brick background. Now this background you can use on a multitude of projects, so hopefully you'll find that quite useful. Now you can see this stamp set has both a daisy image and this flower image. I am not really up with flowers. I'm not sure what sort of flower that is, but I'm going to do a sample using this one just so that you see both. And also I'm using this one on the second project. So we just want to try and use both images in there. So this is actually watercolor paper. This, if you can use it in your project, if it's the right color and right weight and such, it is the preferable thing to watercolor with because it has cotton in it and can accept a lot of water. I'm going to stamp this flower image with StazOn, because StazOn is an alcohol-based ink, and therefore you can get it wet and it won't bleed. It's a sure thing. So you want to get it very wet and stamp quickly. I'm going to stand up off of my squeaky chair about here, and you want to get good weight on there because it is a big image. Okay, pretty good. Now from here I am going to go ahead and actually use one of our fine spritzers and just wet the whole thing. You don't have to do that, but it just gives you a nice wet palette to work with. The water's sort of beating on top, but it will sort of sink in and blend. Now from there we're going to watercolor, and I am going to sit here and watercolor the whole thing, but as I edit the video I'll just cut some things out so that you're only getting snippets. But I kind of wanted you to see from start to finish how it goes. So the first thing I'm going to do, so we're kind of doing more advanced watercoloring here. Should have grabbed a tissue. So with watercoloring you can just splash some color on, leave some white space, and honestly it looks great. I'm going to show you kind of the next level up. I'm no artist, I don't claim to be an artist, but this you can add a bit more detail if you'd like. It's alright if the paper curls up. We're going to kind of curl it up anyway, and it will flatten back down as it dries. So with your water aqua painter, you want to make sure that there's water running through there, and I'm using Soft Sky ink here. And I'm just going to create a background. So it's just some blue behind the flowers. And you can see how the color is moving quite easily and nicely. You don't have to color the entire background, but just a little bit around the flowers. Okay. Now if you have time you could let it dry in between layers, but most of us aren't that patient. I'm just going to dab it off a little bit, because if your project is really wet and then you add more wet color on, the colors will bleed together, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay, now I'm going to then watercolor with these two colors, Wisteria Wonder and Perfect Plum, and I'll do the flowers. Best to start with the light color first. And again, I'll probably speed through this when I'm editing the videos. All right, now I've put the Wisteria Wonder on, and I'm going to go back and add just some elements of Perfect Plum, just for a little bit of shadowing and interest. All right, now I've got some Perfect Plum on there, and I've let the ink kind of run out. So there's some that are dark, some that are medium, and some that are very light. So you've got quite a few color variations in there just with the two ink pads. I might just add just a little bit more color there. So you can always add more color, and of course the more water that's coming through with the ink, the lighter the color is going to be. I think that's good. All right, now we'll do the green stems, and I'll do these in Old Olive. Also keep in mind that as the color dries, it will become lighter. I wanted to add a little bit more interest to this, and I'll just add some crumb cake in through here as well, just to give it a bit more dimension. Could even add a little bit of yellow. We'll see if it will come out. I don't know that it will, but it will kind of blend in with the purple. Anyway, these ones that have full flowers showing. Okay, that will be a very subtle detail. All right, then the next step would be adding some smoky slate. I know these lights are very bright and you probably can't see the blue anymore, but it is there and you'll be able to see it in the pictures. So the smoky slate is to add some shadowing. So if you want to do watercoloring and take it up to the next level, I would say that Soft Sky and the smoky slate are two colors you'd want to have. Doesn't have to always be Soft Sky, but just light colors. So the smoky slate, I'm just going to add a light color of it as a shadow. Again, like I said, I'm no expert on these kinds of things, but it seems like it would just go on one side of the images rather than on both sides. All right, I'll do this. Okay, I changed my mind about what I said about going on one side. I think it looks good going down one side, but it also looks fine going down both sides, the shadow being on both sides of the project. So I've gone around both sides. I don't know how well you can see this in the camera, not that well. I've done these two flowers with shadows and that one without, so you can hopefully kind of see the difference. It looks fine without. I mean, someone's certainly not going to say it's wrong. Oops. But also adding that gray is something where people wouldn't necessarily see that there was a gray shadow around it, but it really makes it look just that much better. One of those details that doesn't jump out, but really does make a difference. Okay, my pen's really watery now. Okay, and when you blot it up, of course, it takes some of the color with it, so it's very pale. All right, I'm happy with that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is add the Timeless Texture. This is one of those really cool stamp sets that looks like not that exciting, but actually it is, and we're going to use these three here on the project. Here they are. And we'll do this in Crumb Cake. Now the paper is still very slightly wet. I found this particular image works best when you just do like a partial image. So I'm going to stamp it off and just stamp like part of the image on there. I'll go back in and fill in the blanks, you'll see. This is one you can just kind of slap on. There's no real rhyme or reason. Oops, now this one's more of a streaky one. We can go in and add that one. Looks more like maybe kind of a wood grain sort of a thing. And you can do that over the top or fill in the gaps. I'll just do one up there. All right, then this stamp, which is the more dotty one, I think I'm going to not use a block so I can control it a bit better, and I'm just gonna stamp it off a couple times so it's really pale, and just add a few, oops, just got on my hand, just add a few in the flowers. And again, if it's hard to see, oops, it's hard to see on the video, then don't worry, the pictures will, sometimes you can sort of erase. That's all right, we'll just leave it. Okay, now I'm gonna take my pen and just kind of go over the edges and sort of just blend in that ink. It's all water-based ink, so it will get it wet enough and it will start to run and smear. And in this case, I might actually like that. Okay, I'm just checking my notes, make sure I'm not forgetting things. We will sponge around the edges. I might grab a slightly darker ink, the soft suede. And the paper's still wet, so it will be a little bit different look than when you sponge on dry paper. You could even get your sponge wet if you wanted to really go all out. Okay, then we'll just curl around some of the edges, or corners I should say. Can even ink those. And I'm going to use my scissors and just kind of rough up the edges. And if it tears because it's wet, it's somewhat weakened, that's okay. All right, then I'm going to use the Wink of Stella pen. On this particular image, on the daisies I put it right in the middle. On this particular image, I might just put it on this larger one and just put it all over on this larger flower. So just one of the flowers will be sparkling. The thing with these Wink of Stella pens, if I haven't told you before, is just don't squeeze them. Once you've got the color or the shimmer running through, then just let it do its thing. Don't squeeze it anymore. That actually looks really pretty. I'm tempted to do all three, but I'll just leave it with one for now. Now I've also added some white gel pen. Let's make sure this is working. I did that on the daisies in the middle of the flowers. They had a nice, easy spot to put the white gel pen. On these ones, I might just put them on the middle of these ones. I'm going to set this aside to dry because between the water and the Wink of Stella and now the white gel pen, I think we need to just set it aside for a minute and just let that dry. Okay, we'll put that over there. Now we are going to work on our brick background. So I've already embossed the paper. This is using the Brick Wall embossing folder. Love this, well worth having. So again, I'm going to just show you what we're creating, this background here. Now, every time it's going to be different, and that's all right. I'm starting with crumb cake, and you'll see you've got two ends of the ink pad, one where there's a gap between the ink pad and the edge, and one where there's a little bit of space. So you want to hold it so the side with a little bit of space is, you know, so you can brush it on from this end rather than this end. So I'm just going to brush it lightly across. Now everyone's got a little different heaviness to their hand, and then like I just snagged it on there, so it'll be something like that. And then you can take the soft suede. Now I might take the soft suede going up and down the bricks rather than across. Okay, something like that. Then you could take a white ink pad if you wanted. I might just take this soft suede, see what, I mean not soft suede, this is Wisteria Wonder, just see what that looks like. It's kind of nice. Just to bring in that same color that we have on the flowers. Now here is a fun technique. We're going to take this stamp, the one that's kind of got some striations through it. I'll take a darker purple, so in this case the eggplant. You could also use espresso or maybe black. Oh, this one. Okay, now I'm going to just use this without the block and ink up just a portion of it like so. And I'm just going to drag it across the bricks, and you'll need to just keep re-inking it. So we're not actually stamping it. Just going to get some of those striations running through there. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Very cool. Very fun technique too. Now we need to just tear that down to size. I might just get a clean paper just so we don't get things wet and inky. I think we're actually ready to start assembling our cards. So we have our card base is very vanilla. Okay, so there we go. Then we want to put our brick folder on top, and you see that I've actually cut it quite a lot bigger, so we can just tear it down to size. And you always want to tear towards yourself, and you can tear it following the brick patterns or just tear it randomly, whatever suits you. Okay, so if that's about the size we want, about like that ish, then looking for my soft suede, we will just ink those edges as well. And then fold those edges up. You could even ink the back of those. Just use your fingers, a tool that we all have. Okay, and then you can just place that on your project. And you don't need to be too fussy about having it on totally straight. I think I'll do mine at an angle on purpose and then do the flowers on the opposite angle. So before we put the flowers on, I want to wrap some linen thread around there and some lace. I love linen thread. I buy it by the 3 and 4 packs at a time. Oops, got that quite on a diagonal, but that's okay. Like that, and then I'll just take some of the lace and tie a little bit around that knot there. I got way too much, but that's okay. Okay, something like that. Now, I'm only going to put adhesive down through the middle of this so that the edges stay nice and free. It just gives it some dimension, although it's not going to be on dimensionals. I'm putting my fingers all over this. Hopefully it's relatively dry. Okay, so the bricks were going that way, so I'll put this going this way. Something like that, and we're going to get this kind of folded up because it's only stuck down in the middle. Then we want our words, which I've already kind of stamped those out, and I put a little bit of those grungy stamps around the edges as well. And this one we will put on dimensionals. So just 2 of those will work fine. I kind of cover my flowers. I'll put it up here. Let's see. Kind of about like that. Okay, then I'm just going to add a little bit of ink around this vanilla card. And before I finish, I'm just going to stamp something on the inside. And I think I'll stamp just the flowers again, but just a small portion, and I'm not going to color them in. And I'll also stamp, if I can find it, there it is. The little, in this stamp set, there's a couple of little border stamps that are quite cute. I think I'll just stamp one of those in each corner. I really like these. Okay, then from there, sorry, I don't know if I showed that well enough, but again, these will be in on the PDF file. You have some nice pictures to look at. We're just going to put this onto a, it's not a card base, it's just a piece of card. So I'll show you here in a sec if I can get that off. A piece of soft suede. All right, so then that, oops, sorry, I just opened that, the vanilla part, and then the soft suede is on the back. Now the last thing is to make an envelope, and that, by the way, that Wink of Stella looks really amazing. Hopefully I can capture that in the photographs. This actually looks really very cool. They both look good. Okay, so the envelope punch board makes 66 sizes of envelopes. These particular cards that we just made are 5 by 5.5 inches. So on these columns it shows you the size of the card. So we've got 5 by 5.5, and then it says cut your paper to 8.5 by 8.5, which I've done. And then your number is 4 1/8. So I get my paper that I've cut to 8.5 by 8.5, and then 4 1/8. So we put it in the machine and we line it up to 1, 2, 3, 4 1/8, and then you punch, and then using the little scoring tool you'll just score. There's a little score line there. Now you only measure it the first time you put it in. The second punch you're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and that little bar will line up with the score line, and then you just punch and score. See, everyone does it. Especially if they do this sitting down, it's actually easier to do standing up. Punch and score. And punch and score. And then if you want to, you can round your corners in the back of the envelope punch board. So then from there, it's just folding it in, and there you go. There's your envelope. So here's the one that's finished. And then you can just add that stamp again. I wouldn't bother coloring it on the Wisteria Wonder. Excuse me. So I hope you've learned a few little watercoloring techniques and some background techniques. Thanks for watching.